Happy New Year, everyone. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Please all rise for our greeting and call to worship. The Lord is with you. Bless the Lord, my soul. Bless the Lord, my soul. He pardons all my wrongdoing. He rescues me from death's pit. He satisfies me with all good in the prime of life. Bless the Lord, my soul.
Old Testament reading, Deuteronomy 22:8. When you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof. Otherwise, you might have blood guilt on your house, if anyone should fall from it. The word of life.
Thanks be to God.
Today's Gospel reading, Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 40. Please stand up if you are able. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. The Gospel of Living Christ.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Shalom. Let's bow our heads for a moment and let's pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my salvation. May you speak either through me or in spite of me, but, O God, speak to us. Amen. I wish you a blessed and a meaningful new year. May this new year be the best you've ever had. In the previous weeks, we look at the theme of how to make this year your best year ever. And we looked at two things. The first one, instead of asking what is this year going to bring to me, we ask what can I bring to this year. And then last week we spoke about how to lose so that you can learn. Because we will lose, there will be failures, there will be disappointments. But how can we go through that in a way that we will learn from it? And today I would like to give you one more tip, one more way of making this year a fantastic year. Not a happy year, but a meaningful year. Not a year without problems, but a year filled with blessings. Because blessings can also be in problems. So let's make a meaningful year. To do this, I would like to concentrate a little bit on the reading that we've done from the Gospel. In the Gospel reading, it's one of those nearly controversial readings where Jesus spoke to his disciples and his followers, and he said to him, he talks about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was sort of the going belief. And he says, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. It's quite controversial because it poses the question, should Christians always be doormats? Should we just forgive and forget every time? If we've been done wrong, just turn the other cheek and let them slap us both cheeks? Should we be weak? Or is there something different to this? I think to make it very simple, what Jesus is saying here is be careful to retaliate. Be careful for revenge. But he's also saying something very interesting. And therefore we need to go to the context of Matthew 5 and the cultural and living context that these people lived in. There are actually two things that we need to know about this. The one thing is the value of the face and the power of the hand. So let me explain. When I came to Korea many years ago, I was not really familiar with the expression of saving face. And very quickly I learned the expression. And I learned how important this one is for people in this part of the world. Where I come from, that's not so important, but here it's really important. And that's why in the Korean language we have quite a few idioms that are about face and about face saving. If you talk about face, if somebody says, well, he's getting red in the face, or the face is big. So there's a whole lot of beautiful idioms. People cover their face when they are embarrassed. There's lots to do about the face. I've read a few articles that were written by scholars on the issue of saving face in Korea, and it was absolutely revealing. The whole industry of cosmetics and also the plastic surgery industry here that's some of the largest in the world, all stem from face. And I read in those articles that for a Korean person, for a Japanese, and for Chinese, especially these areas, the most sacred part of your body is your face. You don't touch anybody's face or head. You just don't do that. Your face is important, what it looks like, and you are always in this mode of saving face. A person who has lost faith or is losing faith, that person is in a predicament. It's unforgivable. In the Near Middle East, they had something similar. In the time of Jesus, there was something similar. The face was all important. The face was holy. The face was sacred. And to touch somebody's face is to deface that person, is to take that person and humiliate that person, degrade that person. So if you slap somebody in the face, if you touch his face without permission, it is contempt. There's something, a second thing that we have to look at. The hand. The face as a very holy thing, a very sacred thing. But the hand, even in our traditions, when we talk about the hand, we talk with our hands, don't we? Some people more with their hands than others. I like talking with my hands. But our hands have power. Just to illustrate this, I want you to just look at what I'm going to do with my hands now. So, say for instance, I want the people that sit there to come and sit here, and I do this. I say, you guys there, come sit here. How does it feel? He's pointing at us, right? It's like a gun. It's like a revolver. It's not a good feeling, right? If I would say, I want those people there to come and sit here. Come and sit here. Is it a good feeling? Not really. It's a bit of a Hitler feeling, a bit of a Nazi feeling, right? You do that. It's suppressing. It is, it's not a good feeling. But if I say to you, I would like to have those people to come and sit here, what am I doing? I am inviting. So your hand has a lot of power. Bring the two together, and there's something interesting in what Jesus is saying to these people. In the world there, in Israel, in the time of Jesus, it was under Roman occupation. Under Roman occupation, it was something similar to what I think Korea has experienced under Japanese occupation. The people, the Jews in Israel, were taken as second-class citizens. They were these hierarchies, Romans first, and then a whole lot of hierarchy down, but right at the bottom, equal with slaves, were the Jews. So the Romans didn't think anything of the Jews, and any Roman soldier could at any time ask a Jew or actually give them a command. They could command them to carry something or give them water or do something. The way that they did it was not polite. It's not like, please, would you give me some water? It was usually with the hand, it was usually dominating, it was pointing, it was usually done with contempt. If any Jew would refuse, they would use their backhand to give them a slap. So they would slap them like this. Most Romans soldiers were right-handed. And the way to humiliate someone was to give him a backhand slap. That was the way that you would slap or humiliate a slave. That was the way that you would humiliate anyone that you deem as lower than you. So these second-class citizens had a few choices then. Jews had a few choices. They could either retaliate, and it could be a huge fight, and of course, it would not be good. They could just turn away and get another slap. But Jesus taught them something very interesting. He said to them, "Turn your other cheek." Now, this is the thing. When Roman soldiers fought, they would use their fist and they would box and they would hit one another. If they were really angry at one of their peers, they would give them a slap with an open hand, but never a backhand. Backhand was reserved for slaves and for second-class citizens. To give a Jew an open hand slap or box or fist would be to put that person equally. It's for equals. And to do that, that would have been for that soldier a humiliation. Just don't do that. So Jesus said to them, "Turn your other cheek." They will not be able to give you a backhand with that. If they give you a slap, it means that you were then on the same level. They put you on the same level, and no Roman soldier would do that. So what is Jesus actually telling them? Very interesting. Jesus is telling them, do not retaliate, do not fight back, but keep your dignity. Retain your dignity. Don't revenge. But by turning your other cheek, draw your boundary. Draw your boundary. Set your boundaries very straight. Don't let them humiliate you further. Keep your dignity. And this is where our today's sermon title comes from. The art of setting boundaries. You see, brothers and sisters, over the years in the church, I heard many sermons about forgiveness and turning the other cheek, meaning that you have to be the least. Let people just walk over you, that's a Christian way. But it's not what Jesus is teaching his disciples. He's actually teaching them, draw your lines, draw a line in the sand. Keep your dignity. Don't let them take your dignity away from you. Last week we also looked at the Karpan triangle. I don't know if you remember. And we said that any given situation, people are drawn, or people have a default position that they take whenever there's a conflict, wherever there's a problem. And most of us are either, in this Karpan triangle, we are either the victim. Things happen to us. We have no control over that. And then we say there are the bullies, the instigators, the strong people, and they're usually overpowering. But then we also said, in this triangle, there are those who are eternal rescuers, the heroes. And it's actually also that this verse in the Gospels pertain to that. It says something about the rescuers. You see, the rescuer is that person who goes out and he's a good person. There's no problem. We all have to help people. But the rescuer is that person who cannot say no. Is that person who's always, even when it's detrimental to him or her, he will try and save other people, put other people first. And the result is usually that this person burns out. And at the end, he feels that he's actually a victim at the end. The rescuer is also on the lookout for victims. The rescuer cannot live without a victim. He's always on the lookout for a victim. And he must find a victim. And that's why it's difficult for this person to say no. It's actually so impossible. Because this person always feels guilty if he doesn't give his time, his money, his energy, and his energy is everywhere, because there are so many victims, there are so many people to rescue, even if they don't want to be rescued. But the rescuer will always go and find someone to rescue, somewhere to do good. We have to do good, of course. This person is so self-sacrificial and open to manipulation that at the end, this person is just tired, exhausted. You see, from childhood, we're often taught to bend and mold ourselves to make other people feel comfortable and happy. And the rescuer is that person who is on the lookout, who can I make happy? Brothers and sisters, God has not called us to make people happy. Maybe you're shocked. I cannot make someone happy. Happiness is your own choice. But I can add value to someone's life. I can add meaning to someone's life. But the rescuers try to make people happy. And in the whole process, they're the most unhappy person deep inside. The rescuer needs to have a victim for his own self-worth. And that's why it's easy for that person to be guilt-ridden. It's easy to feel guilty all the time. So that person, and it's many of us, maybe it's you, that person don't want to offend or hurt or, make other people feel less happy. You see, we've been taught from a young age to put the feelings of other people ahead of our own needs, to the point that many of us don't even know the answer to the question, what are boundaries? Let alone how to set them. So that's why I think it's necessary for us to talk about boundaries. Talk about those boundaries that are healthy, boundaries that can make us people who add meaning to our own lives, but also add meaning to the lives of other people. There are three kinds of boundaries. And I want to take you through those three kinds of boundaries quickly. The first kind of boundary that some people put up are those rigid boundaries. This week I will fly out to South Africa, and I'm looking very much forward to that. But if you go to South Africa in these days, this is what you will find in some of the richer areas. People build these huge walls for safety, build this huge wall around their houses with electrical wiring and all kinds of security. And it's like a fort. It's like a castle. You cannot go in. The problem with that is many people live in their own little castles. Maybe they've been injured. Maybe they've been hurt before. And that's why they build these huge, thick walls with electrical fencing, with all kinds of security around them. You cannot get into them. They cannot get out. And it's a very lonely place. And that's not what God intends for us. The person there avoids intimacy and close relationships. They've been hurt. They're unlikely to ask for help. Few close relationships. Detached. It keeps everyone at a distance. And that person becomes lonely. So some people have too rigid boundaries. They don't allow themselves to love. They don't allow themselves to feel because of hurt, because of many things. The second one is people with porous gates. Now this here is interesting. This is actually the fence between two countries. And it's actually the border. And what they've done there is they thought if they put fencing there, that everybody will stay on each side. And it wasn't long before everybody from the other side is just walking through these wires to the other side. Nobody cares. And that is a problem with a person whose boundaries are too loose. Very weak boundaries. They overshare their personal information. They want to have sympathy. They want to have all these likes on their Facebook all the time, and they sort of very much aware of what people say about them, and they always want to seek approval from everybody. They help everybody. There's no boundary. There's no place where they are defined by themselves. They accept the abuse and disrespect. They get bullied very easily. And they fear rejection. Therefore, they're always on the lookout. How can I please? Very subtle sometimes. The third one is a person with healthy boundaries. As you can see on this photo, healthy boundaries are people, there's a fence, there's a wall, but there are gates. There are gates that they are in control of, so they open the gates and they close it. They know when to open and they know when to close. They know who to let in and who to keep out. It's not a prison. It's not this dark dungeon that some people put themselves in, but it's open gates. They have the button. They have the remote control of those gates. They go in and they go out. They don't compromise their values for others. They share personal information that's appropriate. They know how to trust. But they know who they are. And that is what Jesus actually tells those people. Know who you are. You are worthy in yourself because God has made you like that. You don't need the approval of everybody. You know, you don't have to be liked by everybody. The problem is to do that. How do you do that? So I would like to share a few types of boundaries that we find. There are physical boundaries that refer to our physical space, our personal space, and healthy boundaries include an awareness what's appropriate and what's not, what is off limits and what's not. What can you allow in your life, what not? There's something like emotional boundaries. It refers to a person's feelings. Healthy emotional boundaries include limitations on when to share and what not to share. Usually, if your boundaries are very loose, people tend to belittle, criticize. You don't have that healthy emotional boundaries for people to say to them, keep out. I'm not going to allow you to belittle me. I'm not going to allow you to infringe on this part of me that is very, very important. Usually a person with weak boundaries easily get gaslighted, easily is prone to somebody that is a bully and tells you this is not what you feel, this is not, doesn't validate your feelings. We know about sexual boundaries, material boundaries. Christians must have material boundaries. What you share and with whom you share. In a time like this, family come together, right? All the families come together. And we know of everybody, I think in every family, have those who just infringe on your boundaries. They can say to you, they think they can say to you whatever they want. They cannot. You have boundaries. Time boundaries. I don't know about you, but for me, time is sacred. If you lose money, you can make it up. If you lose time, there's no way that you can make up for lost time. And people sometimes infringe on your time. You know, they come into your time, they come into your life somehow, and they lay claim on your time. And you can't say no. You feel guilty. You see, a person who infringes on our boundaries is usually a person who makes us feel very guilty. So how can you set healthy boundaries? A few ways. Number one, say no. Learn how to say no. You have to give yourself the permission to say no to anything that makes you unhappy and drains your energy and infringe on your dignity. And I might say to me, but that doesn't sound like a Christian. Now I want to show you a little bit later that it is what Jesus did. So the first one, learn how to say no. This morning in the service, I told the theological students, I had to learn how to say no. Because for most part of my life, I was a yes-sayer. Everything, say yes, yes, yes. Somebody asked me of something, infringe on time, dignity, whatever, I was yes, and in my heart, there was a huge no. I knew, but I didn't want them to feel bad. So I told them, the best exercise you can do is go in front of a mirror and practice to say no. See yourself saying no, and for 1 week, say no to everything. For every no, there's a yes, and for every yes, there's a no. For every yes, there's a no. The problem is, sometimes we can be so absorbed in saying yes to everything that the things that we should say yes for, we say no. I've learned that the hard way. Saying yes to the world, you probably have to say no to your kids and your family. You never get that back. Saying yes to the Lord is to say no to evil. Saying yes to your family is to say no to those things that infringe on that violate the special time, the bonding time. You have to learn when to say yes, when to say no. What are the benefits? What are the benefits of saying no or setting up healthy boundaries? The benefits are these. Put some of it on the board. You'll have more time. Time to spend on that which is important. You'll have to spend less time with toxic people. That's why you need to have gates. Get them out. You don't need everybody's approval. You don't need everyone in your life. You can say no. And that's not to love them as yourself. That is to keep your boundaries. You will stop to fix everybody. Brothers and sisters, we cannot fix everybody. Now, people, if they cannot be fixed, tell them, the Lord can fix you. But we cannot fix everybody. The other one here, you will have more authentic relationships. Your life will be defined. Your life will have meaning. It will be purposeful. There will be focus in your life. Benefits, so many. The last, Jesus was a boundary setter. If you look at the life of Jesus, in his life, he never lived on the defense, but always on the offense, dealing with temptation and dealing with what is not necessary. Important, and deal with that. For myself, for this year, I've made a list of things that are really important. Things that I can devote my time, my love, my energy to, and make a list of those things that are really not important. Have these gates open and closed. Another thing I saw in Jesus' life is that Jesus wasn't always nice to everybody. We always think of Jesus as this do-gooder, right? Nice to everybody, soft. No, he wasn't. Just go and read that Jesus had very clear boundaries. There were times that he said no to the crowds, even though they were flocking to him, even though they were demanding his time. He said, no, I'm going to the mountain. He had clear boundaries. Also, even in his miracles, he expected people to do their part. He didn't do everybody's job, but he expected people, he trusted people to do their part. So, brothers and sisters, if you want to have a wonderful and a meaningful 2023, learn how to set boundaries. Turning the other cheek is all about setting boundaries. Don't be manipulated into weakening your boundaries. Your time is sacred. Create boundaries, not prisons. And this year might be the best year ever. Amen. So just take note of that. They have a meeting here, so the service 2:00 will be in Appenzeller Hall. You can just follow the signs. So people of God, go in peace. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.